In a village where the clouds liked to visit often, there was a little bakery called Cloud and Crumb. It was run by a kind baker named Nella, whose specialty wasn't just bread or cakes, but rainy day pastries. Whenever soft raindrops tapped the windows, Nella would begin. She'd mix her dough with ingredients like vanilla mist, lemon-scented breeze, and a pinch of gentle thunder. She baked muffins that tasted like puddle hopping, scones that felt like reading under a blanket, and cookies with sugar as soft as drizzle. People came from nearby towns just to sit by the warm windows, sip honey-sweet tea, and let the rain fall quietly around them. They didn't just eat pastries, they tasted calm. And every bite reminded them that rainy days are just the sky's way of whispering, slow down. In the deep, quiet ocean, where sunlight fades into blue, a great gentle whale named Sora swam slowly through the currents. But Sora wasn't just a whale. She was a wish carrier. At night, when children whispered wishes into seashells and tossed them into the tide, the ocean would carry them down, down, until they reached her. She tucked each wish carefully under her fin, letting them glow like little lanterns as she traveled the sea. One glowed pink, a wish for a friend. Another pulsed softly, a wish for courage. All were safe with her. She sang deep songs that echoed through the ocean, wrapping the world in a calm embrace. And though no one ever saw her above the waves, many dreamed of a whale who carried their hopes gently through the sea. In a small attic room above a sleepy bookshop, there was a very special pillow. Not just soft, but magical. Its fabric was sewn from old lullabies, and its stuffing made of the fluffiest dandelion seeds. But what made it truly special was what it did while you slept. The pillow caught dreams. As you dozed off, it would gently tug the best parts of your day, a smile, a warm hug, a moment of laughter, and weave them into soft, glowing threads. Then, as you drifted deeper into sleep, it spun those threads into a beautiful dream, wrapping it gently around your mind like a blanket. When you woke, the details faded, but the feeling stayed. Safe, light, loved. In a quiet part of the world where the grass meets the sea, lived a little turtle named Pippin. Pippin was never in a rush. Every morning he'd set off from the shore, not to reach a place quickly, but to enjoy every little thing along the way. He greeted each flower, paused to feel the wind, listened to the crickets, watched the clouds. While others zipped by, Pippin noticed the soft shimmer on pebbles, the way sunlight touched leaves, the laughter of waves rolling in. And by the time he got home, the whole day had become a peaceful memory, slow and beautiful. Sometimes the best journey is the gentle one. In a quiet drawer of an old sewing cabinet, nestled between spools of thread and thimbles, lived a box filled with buttons of memory. Each button was different. One pearly white, one shaped like a star, one the color of rain. When touched, each button played a tiny memory from someone's life. A moment of laughter around a dinner table, a first snowfall, the hug of a mother before school. A girl named Lila discovered the box one sleepy afternoon She pressed 1, and suddenly felt as though she was sitting beside a fire, cocoa in hand, even though she was alone in the attic. She pressed another, and felt the peace of a quiet garden in spring. Each night she would choose one button and drift into sleep, held by a memory not her own, but just as warm. Deep in an old forest, where the trees speak in rustles and the moss grows soft like velvet, there is a secret place only a few have ever found. The library beneath the forest is not made of bricks or wood, but of roots, stone, and time. To get there, you must follow the path where the mushrooms glow at dusk, and the birds begin to hum their evening songs. Past the sleepy stream and beneath an archway made of twisted ivy lies a wooden door in the earth. Open it and you'll find a staircase of soft earth, spiraling gently down into warmth and quiet. Inside, the library is lit by floating lanterns that drift lazily in the air like fireflies. The walls are lined with shelves carved into the roots of the trees above, and on every shelf sit books that whisper, not loudly, only when held with care. Foxes curl by the reading chairs, owls perch on beams and blink slowly. A sleepy badger in a vest acts as the librarian, shuffling from shelf to shelf with tiny glasses on his nose. The books here don't tell just any stories. They hold memories of the forest. A page might tell of the first rainfall after winter, or the sound of snow landing on pine needles. Another might carry the scent of spring flowers, or the feeling of sunlight on fur. One night, a small child named Emery found the door while wandering after a dream. Inside, they sat cross-legged beside a soft fox and opened a book titled "The Day the Forest Smiled." As they read, a warm feeling spread through their chest. The feeling of being part of something gentle, something wise, something that's always been there. And when they finally closed the book and yawned, the badger gave them a nod, and the forest led them back to bed, their heart a little fuller, their thoughts a little quieter, on a quiet beach where the waves whispered instead of crashing. There was a smooth, white shell that never stayed in the same place. One morning, it would lie near the driftwood. The next, nestled among the dunes. Some believed the tide moved it. Others thought it moved on its own. But everyone agreed the shell could sing, not loudly, but if you held it to your ear, you'd hear more than the sea. You'd hear a song, soft and low, filled with memories of moonlight tides, dolphins beneath the waves, and ancient ships gliding silently across silver waters. One evening, a girl named Mira found the shell just as the stars began to bloom in the sky. She held it close and heard a lullaby so peaceful, it made her eyelids heavy. She curled up right there on the warm sand, and the shell hummed beside her. singing her to sleep with the music of the sea. In a quiet valley wrapped in pine and mist, there was a lake known as Stillwater, a mirror so clear it showed more than your reflection. It showed your dreams. When the moon rose and the wind stilled, the lake shimmered, and if you looked into it, you wouldn't see just yourself, but pieces of your heart, hopes, quiet wishes, the good things you'd forgotten. Some saw themselves painting in sunlit gardens. Others saw cabins in the snow. Children saw fields of stars and flying ships. A boy named Leo once came to the lake after a long, worried day. When he looked down, he saw not his tired face, but himself surrounded by friends, laughter, and warm golden light. And though he couldn't take the vision with him, he walked home lighter, as if the lake had reminded him of something important. Something already inside him. In the middle of a sleepy valley, there stood a tree older than anyone could remember. Its bark was silver grey, its branches long and twisting, like arms ready for a warm embrace. But unlike the other trees, it had not bloomed for many, many years. Seasons passed, snow, wind, sun, rain. Birds landed and left. The other trees burst into green, then gold, then bare again. But this tree, it simply stood. The villagers called it the waiting tree. Some said it was resting. Others said it had forgotten how to bloom. But one little girl named Lena believed the tree was waiting for the right moment, or perhaps the right someone. Each day after school, she visited the tree. She told it stories, tied ribbons to its branches, left warm tea at its roots. She believed it was listening. One spring evening, after months of snow, Lena curled up beside the tree's trunk, hugged it gently, and whispered, "It's okay. You can bloom when you're ready." The next morning, she awoke to sunlight and the scent of blossoms. The tree had bloomed, not with leaves, but with hundreds of soft, glowing flowers that shimmered like moonlight. The village gathered in awe, but Lena just smiled, resting her hand on the bark. She had waited, and so had the tree, up in the sky, where the clouds drift slowly like sleepy thoughts. There was one little cloud who didn't want to rain. Her name was Pumi, and she was the fluffiest, puffiest, softest cloud you've ever seen. All the other clouds had their work, watering gardens, cooling hot cities, helping rivers flow. But Pumi, she just liked floating. She watched the sun rise from high up, played shadow tag with the mountains, and let birds ride on her back. Every time she felt full of rain, she'd puff a little, shake it off, and sail away before the drops could fall. "I don't want to make things wet," she said. "I want to be soft and light." But one warm evening, she noticed a patch of land far below, brown and tired, the flowers drooping, the soil cracked. No cloud had visited it in weeks. Pumi paused. She felt the water inside her stir, not heavily, just gently, like a kindness waiting to fall. She hovered quietly and let the rain come, not all at once, just a soft drizzle, like a lullaby for the earth. The ground soaked it up gratefully. The flowers lifted their heads. The breeze cooled. Pumi felt lighter than ever, and from that day on, she still floated and played. But once in a while, when needed, she rained, gently, like a hug. Once upon a quiet night, when the world was wrapped in silver moonlight, a little star named Leora fell behind. Every evening, stars gathered in the sky like tiny lanterns, taking their places in familiar patterns. The bear, the hunter, the dancer, the dragon. But Leora was curious. She had lingered too long watching Earth, gazing at a child sleeping in a hammock, a couple dancing barefoot in a kitchen, and a dog chasing fireflies. By the time she looked up again, her place in the sky was gone. She floated gently in the dark, blinking her soft golden light. At first, she was frightened. The sky felt big. The constellations were too far. The others twinkled in rhythm while she drifted alone. But slowly, she noticed something beautiful. Down below, she could light the way for late travelers. Her glow touched a sailboat lost at sea, guiding it to shore. A small bird flying at night followed her trail safely to its nest. A sleepy child looked out the window and smiled at her light, whispering, "That one's mine." Leora beamed softly. She hadn't lost her place. She had found her own. When morning came, she slipped beneath the horizon, tucking herself into a patch of quiet sky, ready to return again when night came, not in a pattern, but as a gentle guide to anyone who needed a little light in the dark. At the edge of a quiet village, where the trees burned gold in fall and leaves danced like whispers, there stood a small stone house. It wasn't grand, but it was beloved, because every autumn it came alive with color, scent, and sound. Its porch creaked kindly under boots. Its windows fogged softly from cinnamon tea, and inside the walls were filled with the season itself. Jars of acorns, bowls of crisp apples, cozy quilts, and shelves that smelled like wood smoke and baking bread. The house belonged to an old woman named Aura, who had lived there her whole life. But she wasn't alone. She was visited every year by travelers, not many, just a few, who came with cold hands and tired eyes. Aura didn't ask questions. She simply smiled, poured warm cider, and invited them to sit by the fire. What they didn't know was that Aura's house could listen. It heard footsteps and knew when someone needed quiet. It breathed warmth into the blankets and tucked comfort into every corner. By the time guests left, they always said the same thing. "I feel like the house held me." And maybe it had, because some homes aren't just made of stone or wood. They're made of love, memory, and seasons that never rush. In the quiet lands where hills roll like waves and rivers reflect the stars, lived a little bird named Kiri. She was not the fastest flyer or the loudest singer, but she had something rare, a heart full of wonder. Each night, when the moon rose and lit the treetops silver, Kiri would perch on the highest branch and stare in awe. The moon, round and glowing, felt like a friend, a guide, a story waiting to be followed. One night, Kiri made the decision. She would follow the moon. She flew quietly through the cool air, chasing the soft trail of moonlight across lakes and hills, over sleepy farms and gentle mountains. The world below was hushed, as if holding its breath to let her pass. As she flew, she met others. A fox watching from a hilltop, a deer drinking from a glowing pond, even an owl who flew beside her for a while before drifting away. She didn't know where the moon was leading her, only that the journey made her heart feel light. Eventually, just as dawn began to warm the horizon, Kiri landed on a quiet branch and rested. The moon dipped slowly beyond the hills, and though it faded from the sky, its glow stayed in her chest, soft, quiet, and full of peace. She had followed wonder and found something even better, stillness
High above the world where the sky turned the color of blueberries at dusk, lived a small puffy cloud named Puff. Puff had one wish: to find the softest, quietest place in the sky to take a proper nap. The trouble was, he was always being pulled into storm meetings, wind rehearsals and rainbow practice. One evening just before stars peeked out, Puff quietly floated away. He drifted past flocks of sleepy geese, glided over quiet oceans, and finally found a hidden cove of sky tucked between two slow-moving moonbeams. It was peaceful. No noise, no rush, just the hush of space. Puff fluffed himself up, curled into a perfect cloud ball, and sighed, the softest sigh the world had ever heard. The stars twinkled brighter just for him, and the moon whispered, "Sleep well, little one." Puff finally napped, and in his dream he floated through cotton candy skies with no schedule at all. In the quiet heart of an old town, nestled between eye-covered buildings, stood a tiny bookshop named Whisper and Wonder. But this was no ordinary shop. Every evening, when the lights dimmed and the streets emptied, the books whispered to each other. Some giggled with fairy tales, others sighed with ancient magic. But one shelf, the dream shelf, only came alive at night. A young boy named Ezra discovered this secret when he wandered in one rainy evening. The owner, a kind old woman with silver glasses, handed him a worn book with a blue ribbon. "Read this before bed," she said. "It will tuck you in." At home, Ezra opened the book. A soft wind whooshed from the pages and filled his room with the scent of lavender and old paper. He sank into his bed, and suddenly the book glowed. Words drifted into the air like mist, and a gentle voice said, "Close your eyes." That night, Ezra dreamed of floating libraries, talking bookmarks, and starlit pages that turned themselves. Milo was a quiet little mouse who lived beneath the floorboards of a cottage. He loved peace, the smell of cinnamon, and the sound of the wind rustling through the garden herbs. One night, as the clock struck 12, Milo rubbed his eyes and lit a tiny candle. He put on his softest scarf and tiptoed out with a basket, because tonight was the midnight tea party, a secret gathering held once a month beneath the roots of the elder tree. By the time he arrived, fireflies had already lit the path. A sleepy badger poured tea into walnut shell cups, and a fox in spectacles was reading aloud a dreamy story. Everyone sipped chamomile tea and nibbled on honey-dipped crumbs. As the night grew still, the moon peeked between the leaves, smiling down on the forest friends wrapped in tiny blankets. Milo yawned, his whiskers twitching, and when he finally curled up inside a teacup, he knew this was the warmest, dreamiest party he'd ever been to. Lena lived in a village where stars seemed to shine extra bright, like glitter spilled across the sky. She often lay on her rooftop, arms behind her head, watching them blink. One evening, a small star floated lower than the rest, close enough to reach. Lena stretched up and caught it. It was warm, like a tiny heartbeat. Soon, every night, a new star would flutter down just for her. She kept them in a little glass jar, and each star whispered a different dream. One hummed a lullaby of waves. Another sang of flying horses. Another told stories of faraway lands with cotton clouds and upside-down rainbows. Lena shared her stars with neighbors, and slowly her sleepy village began to glow from the inside out. No one knew why, but dreams were sweeter and sleep came quicker. Maybe, just maybe, the stars had something to do with it. Sam's bed had always felt a little different. It creaked kindly sighed softly, and warmed up just the right amount at bedtime. One night, after a particularly tiring day, Sam whispered, "I wish I could sleep somewhere magical tonight." The bed shuddered once, and then, gently, it rose off the floor. Sam's eyes widened, but he wasn't afraid. The bed hovered toward the open window and floated into the starlit sky. It wasn't fast, it didn't rush, it drifted like a cloud across sleepy rooftops, quiet forests, and oceans that sparkled like ink. As Sam snuggled into the pillows, the wind hummed lullabies and a shooting star waved as it zipped past. Eventually, the bed found a small cloud, curled into it like a hammock, and rocked gently until Sam was fast asleep. By morning, he was back in his room, but the stardust on his pillow told him it wasn't a dream. On the edge of a quiet coastal town, where the sand is soft and the sea sighs in slow waves, there's a little girl named Mira in a weathered blue cottage. Every evening, just as the sun dips low and paints the sea in streaks of orange and rose, Mira walks to the shoreline with a lantern in one hand and a tiny basket in the other. She's looking for treasures, not gold or pearls, but something far more magical, whispering seashells. They only appear when the sky turns golden and the tide is gentle, smooth, spiraled shells that seem ordinary until you hold one close and listen. Tonight, Mira finds one nestled beneath a piece of driftwood. It glows faintly in the light of her lantern. She lifts it carefully, brushing off a bit of sand, and places it gently to her ear. Inside, the shell begins to whisper, not in words, but in memories of the sea. She hears the lull of distant whales calling to one another, the tinkling of underwater bells, and the giggle of dolphins spinning in the surf. The sound wraps around her like a soft blanket. It tells her stories of hidden coves, of deep-sea gardens lit by glowing coral, of old shipwrecks that now sleep peacefully beneath the waves. As she listens, Mira closes her eyes. The waves kiss the shore in rhythm. The wind brushes her cheek like a mother's hand. The seashell hums one last gentle note, like a lullaby sung from far, far below. She smiles, places the shell in her basket, and walks home slowly beneath the stars. And that night, as she drifts into sleep, the ocean dreams with her. In the quiet village of Belmere, surrounded by endless fields of golden wheat, the wind wasn't just wind, it was a painter. Every morning, as the sun rose and painted the sky in shades of peach and gold, the wind would wake with a sigh, stretch softly across the hills, and begin its art. It didn't use brushes, it used the wheat, tall, golden stalks swaying together like bristles. The wind would rush low and light, brushing the field into wave after wave, creating spirals, swoops and patterns only the sky could fully see. Farmers would look out their windows and smile, their hearts calm before the day began. Children believed the wind had a favorite tune it hummed, a song only heard if you closed your eyes and listened with your heart. And when the sun dipped low in the evening, the wind would slow, rest its breath, and let the fields sleep, wrapped in the quiet memory of its art. In a cobbled town where the nights were long and stars hung low, there lived an old candle maker named Elwin. His shop was always warm, filled with the scent of beeswax, cinnamon, and something no one could name, but made you feel safe. Shelves lined the walls, each candle hand-poured and labeled with names like First Snow, Rain on Old Rubes, and Grandmother's Hug. But Elwin had a secret. At midnight, he made a different kind of candle, one that glowed with memories. He used no wick, no wax, just a whisper of someone's fondest moment, a laugh, a lullaby, a childhood garden. Each morning, people would wake and find their hearts lighter, not knowing why, just feeling gently held. And Elwyn, beneath his quiet smile, knew his little lights had done their work.